Welcome to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next. The Alumni Podcast, where you get to hear the inspiring stories and transformation that DVC has had to offer its alumni. And now, on with the episode. Alrighty, so here we are at the DVC Alumni Podcast, and I want to welcome Kristy Poindexter. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, because again, this is an exploration of your journey of how you ended up where you're at, and it's all the bumps and bruises and all the things along the way. Let's start in with where you grew up. I mean, you're a Bay Area person, right? You're born and
Yes,
bred here.
pretty
Okay.
much. Yep. Never moved, never gone out of state. No. I actually was born in Walnut Creek, pretty much raised in Antioch. So, childhood years, teenage years into my mid-20s before we moved over to Concord, and we've been here since. And when I say we, because I live with my parents, it's a long story, and I'll get to that, of course, why I still live with them. But yeah, so born, raised here. I have two siblings. I'm the oldest of three. I have a brother and then a sister. My sister doesn't live far from us, and she has three boys, my nephews, who I love to death, of course, because they're like my children. Um, I live with my parents who are also caregivers, which is, a big part of my story, which of course I'll go into more. And then I have my dog, Callie. She's laying on the bed here sleeping. And I had Fergie as well. Fergie was my little one. She just, after 16 years, we had to put her down in October. So it was very difficult, but
Yeah,
we're
it's always a challenge when you lose your fur critters, because it's like
yes,
I tell people all the time I hate having pets, not because I don't love them, but because there comes that time, and I just a few years ago,
uh,
my wife and we were living together, and this is before we got married, but there was a cat when I moved in that hated everybody, but apparently liked me. And I told her, "This is your cat. I'm not going to do anything with it." And he became my best friend. And so when we finally had to put him down, it was. I think I took it worse than she did. So
yeah, we've had a lot of dogs in our lives, but none of them were as heartbreaking because, like, Fergie, she was a little one. She was like
Mhm.
7 pounds when I got her as a puppy. She fit in my hand, and I was like, her mom. Basically, she was with me all the time, and so yeah, it was just heartbreaking. But it's the pain is better now. It's
Yeah.
like you're not crying all the time or sad all the time, and but anyways, if you don't mind, I would like to share some of my journey.
Yes. So let's get you to DVC, and then let's get into your whole journey and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
for
So
sure. So DVC, I started there, of course, after high school, and this was back in, well, I was supposed to start fall of '98, but had some health stuff. So I actually didn't start until spring of '99. And I took, like, I think 4 classes like most people do, and, I actually met one of my best friends to this day in algebra, and we would sit I can remember we'd sit in algebra class. She always would have a Pepsi with her and, like, one of those big muffins from Costco, the chocolate chip ones, like, and she'd sit there and she'd be like, "You want some?" And or we'd go down to the cafeteria and get the cheese fries, because the cheese fries were the thing, back in the late '90s, early 2000s, and this was all before DVC started getting remodeled too, so, I mean, it was the old campus, um, and then the next semester, I took a couple of classes, but what wound up happening is I was doing too much and basically burning the candle at both ends, and it just for me, like, taking a full load was too much. So I had to back off, and there were times I had to actually, withdraw, like, right before
Mhm.
finals, because I would wind up very sick in the hospital, so I just learned to pace myself, and I guess I should go in and say I was there doing basic general education with the goal of getting my psych AA, um, and so I was taking a lot of the classes, the basic classes, the history, some of the fun classes, that I really loved were art history, anthropology. Um, I just feel like I learned so much in those, and geology. Like, you can have your English and your math and all those, but, like, stuff out of the norm is what, like, really brought me in. Um, I also worked very closely with the disability center because of medical issues, and, I would get picked up every day. I'd park my car, and Lawrence Orm, who drove, the little disability golf cart, he'd come pick me up every day, he'd bring me to my class, drop me off, so we had our set schedule. I was able to go to the testing center and take my tests in there so that I had extra time because there were many times I needed to leave and go use the restroom, and, when you're in class with everybody, it's kinda
Mhm.
hard and you're disruptive, and so, a lot of the professors and people that I work took their class with, I would always tell them when semester began, like, "Look, I have health issues. There will be times where I will miss class. There will be times I'm gonna have to get up and run to the bathroom, back and forth, things like that." Most of
So
them.
did you feel really supportive through that? Because I know one of the things is the
Yes.
story I get constantly here at DVC is just, um
Right here.
okay.
Sorry, I just had to let the dog out.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay. But one of the things, the story I hear constantly here at DVC is about the amount of support that we've had over the years. Now, I came here back in the early to mid '80s. I couldn't even tell you when it was. So it was, way before any kind of remodeling was being done on a grand scale.
Mhm.
But I know that one of the things is and the biggest thing is you have to ask. That's the biggest thing is,
Yes.
how did you get plugged into that? What was the process like for that? Because that's a story that I wanna share with people.
Like, for the disability services?
Right. Right.
Gosh, I think it was just, I actually think it was when I went and saw the counselor to pick out classes and go over things, and, like, the very first time, I just had a general counselor, like, but once I saw the counselor and they said, like, "You'll qualify for disability, you need to go to their office and apply," or whatever, 'cause, everything was, like,
Mhm.
pretty much before a lot of computers came out. I mean, computers were out, but it wasn't where it is nowadays, where everything's computerized. Like, a lot of stuff was still all paperwork. Um, Filling out paper, standing in long, long lines to register, standing in incredibly long lines at the book center to go in and get all your books, and, I mean, you'd come out with stacks. And, like, "How do I
I
get all
I
this?"
I remember that. It's just like
Yeah,
it was daunting and you had to fill out the application and then you had to, like, look on the printout to to see is that
Yes.
class full, and it's like you look at the catalog, oh great, and then you look up, oh it's full, so now you got yeah, I remember that, and that was
Those are the days.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
now I feel really old, thanks a lot, but,
Right?
it's just yeah, it's like back in my day, but the thing is I what I love about I mean, the thing about the story is that it's the support that DVC is willing to extend to anybody. I mean, that's the big thing.
Yes, and so I went into disability services, and, there was a woman there, Nicole, who did a lot of the running of the place, and then Ron Tenty, he was, like, the overseer guy, you know? So I had them, and they were great. I mean, they set up everything, and a few years later, because I have to say, I was at DVC for a very long time. I was in and out, and it took me like, I never expected it to take me that long when I first started. It took me, like, 19 years, but I'm okay with that. Like, I still kept going until I got my degree and, felt like that was good. But basically, they took care of everything. They would, um talk to the instructor. Like, they would email the instructor and say, "Hey, this student is with disability." Like I said, I'd also tell the instructor, um, and then they would get they had their way of working with the instructors to get the tests before the tests were due, the finals, signatures, all those things. So, I didn't have to do a lot of that. That was taken care of internally on their end, which definitely helped, ease the stress and make just the process easier. And I think that's also why I loved going there so much. I still, like, when I drive by, I still am like, "I really should go back."
Well, you're always welcome back
I
here
know, I
again.
know,
Yeah.
I know. And then I also got hooked in with, one of the disability counselors. Her name was Catherine Jester. She was there forever, like, the longest time, and she was great. Um, and I would say, like, in 2007, 8, I had switched my major from psych to business, and so I started having more, like, econ, you know, more math classes, statistics, calculus, like, all those, like, hard classes, but when I had to take the accounting class and it was online, I did not like it, and I was having a lot of health issues at that time too, so I was in and out, and I remember my mom actually brought me to see Catherine, um, because I couldn't walk, so my mom brought me, um, I think in a wheelchair, actually, at that time because I had been so sick, but I wanted to go back to school. And so Catherine started going through, like, all my classes, the I get C, figuring out what I needed, and she was like, "I think you should go back into psych because you only need this many more classes, and then you could graduate." And normally, somebody could get those. I think it was, like, maybe 8 classes. Normally, somebody could get those 8 classes done very quickly, like, in a year. For me, I was only doing, like, 1 class at that time. Sometimes I would do an online class. Sometimes it would be a hybrid. Because, like, as time went, they started offering those online classes or those hybrid classes, um, which definitely made things easier for me, um, because trying to the stress on my body of trying to get to DVC, parking, get picked up, have to sit in a class for an hour, hour and a half, you know, not feel good, be running to the bathroom. It was a lot. It was a lot on my body. My body couldn't always handle it. So, um, it was definitely good when those online classes started coming into play more. Um, and then I finally got my degree in 2019.
Wow.
I
Okay.
got to walk. It was great.
Well,
Yeah.
and that is a big moment, and, you beat COVID, so that's good, because that would have made, because
I
that was
actually
that
didn't get it at all until last year.
oh, wow, well, congrats.
I know, right?
Yeah, well, no, I know, it's like my wife and I had skipped COVID for about a year and a half after it started, and then, she brought it home from one of her trips, and she was really mad because she thought we were never gonna get COVID. I'm going, "Honey, we were gonna get COVID at some point. We absolutely were."
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just we had to wait long enough, but what I mean by that is you got in there before, so you still had classes where you got to see people and experience the community and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
there's a number of people I've talked to who, they arrived here in 2020, and so, international students and stuff, and it was just like, now they're stuck. So, so you got to walk,
Yes.
which was nice, and then so talk a little bit about kind of like your journey through all your stuff and the various things that you're working on now.
Sure. So my journey, I actually got sick with health issues when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Healthy, normal little girl, baby, all that. And I got sick out of the blue with like a virus. And I wound up at John Muir in Walnut Creek. And I spent quite a few months there and they could not figure out what was going on. Every time I would eat anything, I would throw up. So, because none of the tests were showing anything, they chalked it up to me being anorexic. And this was in 1987, October of 87 that I got sick. And most people in the East Bay go, like children, go to Children's in Oakland. However, I wound up at Children's at Stanford because they had a like psych unit basically for kids and adolescents with learning disabilities, mental health issues, eating disorders, all of those things. And I was put on this unit and it was kind of torturous. I won't go into like a lot of detail, but basically they put a feeding tube down my nose every night and then took it out every morning. And in like hopes that that would force me to eat. And but I would eat and I would throw up. So, after a couple of months of being there and them thinking, "Oh, maybe she was abused," all these things. None of that was the case. They had a test, a barium study, and they had me swallow some of the barium. It's chalky dye.
Mhm.
And on the X-ray screen, my whole esophagus was dilated and it just lit up and it was full. It was impacted with food. And that's like this stuff that I was throwing up. The sphincter muscle before the stomach that opens and closes, mine stayed shut. So it wasn't allowing the food to go into the stomach. So they rushed me over to the OR and they spent like 5 hours sucking all this old food out. And then, they put in my first central line, which is a line that basically goes into a deeper vein, and it goes that tip of the catheter is over the heart, and you get fed intravenously that way. So it's nutrition through the vein, through the blood system, and not through the GI system. So they put my first line in and put me on what's called total parental nutrition. And that is IV form of nutrition um, to put some weight on me so that I could then undergo 10-hour surgery to try to correct the esophagus issue. So I had that surgery done. started eating a little bit in the hospital afterwards. And then they came in and they're like, well, we want to do a study and make sure everything's working properly and have you swallow that barium. And so they did. And next thing you know, they have the GI doctors, gastroenterologist, coming in saying, we have diagnosed her with Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease is a inflammatory bowel disease, and it's usually like a genetic thing. Um, so because they thought I had that, they did not want me eating anything. They wanted me on bowel rest. They wanted me on the IV nutrition, the TPN, and they had me on very high doses of IV steroids. And I was treated with that for 2 years and had, like, every kind of side effect possible and spent most of those 2 years inpatient. And then we decided to go to UCLA and get a second opinion. And they're like, "No, she does not have Crohn's disease." The GI doctor at Stanford diagnosed me on X-ray alone, and with Crohn's disease, you have to have a positive biopsy of the intestine, and they never did. So fast forward now, this is going to, like, this is probably about 1990.
So wait, you're like now 10 years old
Mhm.
and you spent I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
I
I'm
got
just like, I'm
Yeah.
like
No, no.
giving me a headache just thinking about you're some precocious little 8-year-old like doing hopscotch or whatever you were doing at 8 years old. And all of a sudden you spend the next 2 years in the hospital, hooked up to stuff, procedures.
ICU, all of
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Some pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so we've had sorry to interrupt, but
No, no,
I
no.
just wanted to like,
Definitely
oh my gosh.
ask questions. So,
Yeah, because it's just like that had to have been just absolutely brutal, you know?
yeah, but you know what? I've had my parents and my
Mhm,
family, and I think especially my mom, she's what's kept me alive and going.
mhm.
Her, fighting, literally fighting for me to stay alive.
What moms do, you know?
Yeah.
They're never tick off a mom, never get between a mom and her cub, so it's just like they will yeah.
For sure,
Anyways, okay, so
for
we'll get
sure.
back here,
So,
so
I'm kinda jumping ahead because I'm not gonna go through all the little details, but it came down to, okay, we need to fix her esophagus. It's not working. The first surgery they did really wasn't successful. So what they planned on doing was called an esophageal pull-through, and it had never been done on a child in the US. The surgeons at Stanford, they called, like, surgeons all around the country, the world even, who had done this surgery, um, and basically, they did it. It was the day the Gulf War started, January '91. I went in for 12-hour surgery. They removed the lower portion of the esophagus, and they pulled my stomach, so my stomach's up here in my chest, like, area parallel to the heart. Um, it's I'm alive, but I'm still not able to eat. And after that surgery, there was, like there was a twist in my duodenum. So the duodenum's the, like, end of your stomach, beginning of your small bowel, and there was a twist, and I was having horrible pain. I wound up on a pain pump, and then I was on that for 2 years before they finally figured out that I had gallstones, and I was passing gallstones. So, fast forward to January of 1994, I'm 14 years old. They go in to remove my gallbladder. They put in a feeding tube, called a J tube, a jejunostomy, and that goes into the jejunum. And then they put me on a unit where they decided to wean me off the pain pump and they also started introducing feeds, formula, like Ensure, through the J tube into my gut so that they could wean me off of the IV nutrition. Well, some things didn't go so great at that hospitalization, as you can imagine. And they had me on a drug cocktail that wound up causing a grand mal seizure, cardiac arrest. And I wound up in the ICU. So there's a lot of things that, happen in the hospital. Of course, up to that time, I probably have coded at least 5 or 6 times by then. Yeah.
So you're now not even 15 years old, and you got all
No, it
this
was,
stuff
like,
going
right
on.
before I turned 15. Yep.
Yeah, so you've had almost half your life has been spent in the hospital, in and out of ICU, getting operations and stuff like that. So, uh, what were you doing for school at this point? Or this wasn't even
Yeah,
a thing at that
that's
point?
the great thing. School, like, was so different then, and it was hard to get, well, it was hard for me to go to elementary school
Mhm.
and then junior high. There were days that I could just go and, like, be there, but it didn't really matter if I did work or anything. It was more to get me, like, to be able to socialize, I guess.
Yeah.
I did have a tutor that came in every once in a while kinda deal. Um, and then when I would be in the hospital at Packard Children's Hospital, they have school. So they have teachers. They have, like, 2 different schoolrooms for, like, elementary and then junior high school. So I did a lot of stuff there as well. Um, and then, I have to say, from the age of 15 to 19, I was actually very, very healthy,
Oh,
of all things. I was able to come off the IV nutrition. All my nutrition was through the gut, through the tube, even though because I couldn't really swallow. Um, I was able to go to independent study, like my high school freshman, junior, or freshman, sophomore, junior year. And then I decided my junior year to start integrating into the high school because I wanted to graduate with my friends,
mhm.
and I wanted to do the senior activities. I wanted to go to prom. I wanted to go to Disneyland. I wanted to do all those things. And I'm just thankful, like, every day that God blessed me with those years to be healthy because I really got to, like, live life then, like,
Mhm.
really live it well. Um, Unfortunately, after I graduated in 1998 from Antioch High School. So that summer, I had 2 wisdom teeth out and I had a dry socket, but I didn't know that I had a dry socket. I didn't know what a dry socket was, but I took the Vicodin they gave me because it was so painful. Next thing you know, I'm in the hospital with 104 fever, and they couldn't figure out what's going on, and they put me on antibiotics. They're doing all these tests. Well, I had developed diverticulitis
Oh my.
in those years that I was healthy, and one of them, little diverticuli, abscessed and perforated. And I had to go in and have my first small bowel resection. So that was in August of 98 or September. So you could see, like, I was supposed to start school that September and it didn't happen. That's why I didn't start DVC until spring of 99. So a lot of crazy,
That's
crazy, crazy stuff.
well, and and so, I mean, just, my commentary on it because it's like this. I mean, it's like so that was going to be one of my questions about whether you got to go to your senior prom or not. Because I mean, I know that's a big thing for most kids as they're going through their life. Is like junior prom's great, but like I've talked to now students who they missed their senior prom because of COVID. And
Mhm.
they're just like, "I can't," and it's a deal, and, yours wasn't even it wasn't because of that, it was just, your own health issues, and so, thankfully, you did get a chance to
Yeah.
to to to
And I
to
also got very involved in well, because I couldn't do sports. I
Mhm.
didn't have energy to do any kind of sports, but I got very involved with drama and choir. So I got to do a lot of the acting and stage management and, like, the musicals, the spring musicals that they have. I got to be in quite a few of those, so I really enjoyed that. I ran oh, what is it called? The drama club my senior year, and then I became a part of the thespian society just because all my friends were doing it, so, like, why not put the hours into it, get it but I never did anything after high school with drama.
Well, but the thing is, you had that opportunity to help kinda create community, and that's an important thing, I think. I mean,
Yes.
that's as a species, we're very tribal, we live through our stories, which
Mhm.
is why you're here today, and then we're also, it's how we connect that, we have the story about who you are and, um, and then also who you're connected to, and that's really about what our stories are about is connecting and being part
I
of a
agree.
club. Yeah, being part of a club is a very important part, I think, and that's we
I
got lots of student clubs here, so
Yeah, I totally 100% agree with you on sharing our stories with other people because that's really what connects us all and inspires us. That's I I've always said God has me here for a reason, and that is to teach and inspire others. It's to teach the medical facility, like, the medical world, like, the doctors, the nurses, when I'm there, how to be more compassionate, how to have more empathy, like, all those things. But even the the housekeepers or the people that deliver your food, like, the people that come into your life every day when you're hospitalized, you're still, like, sharing I, anyway, still share my story with them, and in some way, I people always will remember me and my story.
well, and again, to your point about the story is it's not always the words you say, it's how you make people feel, and for them to understand what you're going through, they can then hopefully feel the empathy to be able to, like, take that on to the next person, or if nothing else, it's just like, well, gosh, it's like, I got it pretty good. I'm able to still do what I'm doing. So you couldn't go to DVC immediately. You had to put that off a little bit. You've been battling stuff for, well, gosh, probably what, 2 decades now. Um,
Yeah,
well, no, actually, truth be told, you've been
a
battling
little
stuff
over a
since
decade.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I would say when I was, like, 22 is when my health really took a turn, and again, because I had had those somewhat healthy high school years, and then at 22 in the early 2000s, things got rough again. And I had to stop DVC for a while and take a break. And then I actually went to beauty school and
Yep.
got my esthetician license. So, that's a
So
whole
you're not
part of
oh,
my story.
I was gonna say a bad joke, which is you're not a beauty school dropout.
No, no,
Okay. Well, no, that was that my wife was a beauty school dropout, so she sings that song from Grease all the time,
all the
but
time. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, love that. Um, Actually, it's a big part of my story because when I was sick, when I was on the IV steroids, my face ballooned out, which is a common side effect, and I got super hairy. I was really pale, like, I didn't want anybody to take my picture ever, like, I didn't like how I looked, and my mom actually would take me over to the Stanford Mall. This is when she could actually, like, take me out of the hospital for a couple hours. You can't do that now, like, you can't go across the street to the mall there. But she would be able to, and she'd bring me into, like, Macy's and wheel me around, and all the ladies at the makeup counter would just treat me so well, and they'd give me all these samples, and then I got totally into makeup, and my mom's like, "Oh, let her, she's a kid, let her play with it." And I would, like, do my cousin's makeup and have little fashion shows, and I really got into it, and I started reading makeup books, and, even when I was in drama, like, in high school, I did the theatrical makeup and learned all that, and I was really, like, thinking I wanted to go into, like, becoming a makeup artist, and I think that's also another reason why, like, I went and got my esthetician license so that I could legally touch people's faces. I could do skincare, I could do facials, I could do makeup, all of those things. Um, and so it took me about a year and a half, 2 years to get my license and go through all of that. And I did work for a very short time, but doing it, but that didn't last long just because I kept winding up in the hospital. So working was always very hard to find stuff that was flexible, that understood, like, about my health stuff, but also it's really it's a whole new set it's a whole 'nother topic and subject, but when you have these kinda complex health issues and you're dependent on the system, Medicare, Social Security, disability, it's not great. And you can't not make much money. You can't show a lot of proof of income or else you lose that, but I need the insurance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
'Cause I pre-existing, nobody will cover what I go through, and my IV nutrition so I have a catheter here.
Mhm.
I get fed every night 10 hours through this catheter since I was 19. I had 5 years off of this in my high school years, but, um, TPN is like 7, $8,000 a week. Yeah. Not to mention my constant hospitalizations and just doctor appointments, on the
Yeah.
weekly, and so
Well, I we're not gonna go down the road of
yeah.
the American healthcare system
Yeah,
because I
no,
have
no, no,
certain
that's why I was
opinions, and
saying it's
it's
a whole
like
'nother
I'm like going, we're the richest country. The only thing I will say, and this is recorded, so it's on the record, and I tell people this all the time. I'm offended that we are the richest country in the world, and we cannot do basically supply universal health care. And I'm just gonna leave it at that, and we will move on, if you are so kind, because
The
you're an
system's
example of
broken.
that. Yeah.
Yes, it's very broken, and that
So
kinda is gonna segue into what I wanna bring up next,
please.
and that is I started advocating for people on TPN and like myself with these complex medical issues. Um, I always felt alone growing up. There was nobody else like me, nobody else that was on TPN at the children's hospital or even at Stanford, like the adult hospital. Um, so I always felt very alone, like the cancer people, the CF people, cystic fibrosis, like they had support groups. They had so much offered to them at the hospital, but then people with like GI issues or medically complex didn't have the same kind of things. And I would say it was about 2008, I started looking online for, like, TPN support groups. And there's this, like, website called Inspire, and it's, like at the time, it was like a group forum kinda deal. They had different topics, and I was like, "This I'm gonna check this out." I start looking. I couldn't believe all the people that are on TPN in this forum, and how many people, like, I was like, "Oh my" sorry, I'm getting excited. I was like, "Wow, like, this is opening so many doors," because I can't even tell you the words. And what was great is I met this gentleman, his name is Hank, and he actually went to Stanford. We had the same surgeon. We were hospitalized many times at the same time, just like 2 doors down, like, literally. Never met each other in the hospital, but we met each other online. And he, for me, was a huge support. He lived here in the Bay Area. He had Crohn's disease. He was older than me. So my mom was like, "What does this guy want, from you?" Like, she was questioning it when I started. But he was like an angel, and he wound up needing a bowel transplant, and he was hospitalized at Stanford for a year before he was transferred to UCLA for multivisceral bowel transplant because Stanford wasn't doing them. But my mom and I decided to go see him one day, and we walk in the room, and my surgeon's sitting there. My surgeon at the time, Dr. Oberhelman, he was, like, at Stanford from when it opened until in his mid-80s. He was there a long time, and so it was nice, like, to be able to meet Hank, see Dr. Oberhelman, um, and Hank did have surgery and actually didn't make it, like, a month later. So but I still share his story because it meant a lot, and he was the one that urged me to start my Facebook support group. So which I started in, I think, 2010. It's when Facebook started coming out with all, like, those like, Facebook groups, basically. And now it's like a huge support group for people all around the world, caregivers, patients, and yeah, I'm glad I did it.
Mhm. Well, and one of the things is I think I mentioned this before we started, but I'd love to any resources you have because the part of this, which I think is really important, is that oftentimes when we're in a situation like yours, I mean, I can't even imagine because I haven't come close to it,
Yeah.
but the need of a community of people that can go, "Yeah, I know what you're going through," is so, I mean, that's you think about it for, like, alcoholics and addicts, they have Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and there's a variety of other recovery groups and support groups for people, like you were saying, with the cancer and with,
Yes, and
yeah, exactly, and it's like, the importance of that is so strong that anything that we can do to help get the word out there is we're certainly happy to do that.
yeah,
Because I think you bring again, I think that's a very powerful voice and a very powerful message of like how much community matters. Because think about that for had you had that connection. Well, Facebook wasn't around then, but even as a young teenager,
as a kid or a teenager, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, that would have made a bit of difference. So, well, I'm sorry Hank didn't make it, but it's like he did
It's okay.
inspire you. He
Yeah,
did
that's
inspire you.
yes.
So what's been, since that time? What's, life been like for you?
So, as I said, I finished off my AA at DVC in 2019. The last 5 years have been, like, crazy. I don't know where the time has gone since COVID, honestly. It's like I'm in the what's it called, zone, what's that TV Twilight Zone. It's just kinda like, where's the last 2 years? But I actually got really sick, like, towards the end of 2020, and I actually had 2 bowel resections in 2021 and a 3rd one in April of '22. So, health-wise, like, I've kinda deteriorated over the last few years. Um, I've had a total of 12 bowel resections. Yeah, crazy. Um, Basically, which I didn't share, is what's happened is because of those 2 esophagus surgeries, my vagus nerve, which is a huge nerve that runs through your body, was cut, and not on mistake. Like, at the time, that's the way they had to do surgeries, is cut by cutting that vagus nerve, and there's no way to go back and repair it now. And the vagus nerve regulates, like, your parasympathetic system, and, um, it helps regulate, like, your motility in your GI tract. It gives you your fight or flight, all kinds of things. Well, my GI tract got really screwed up, and that's why I developed the diverticuli. They started putting 2 and 2 together, like 25 years ago, that, okay, well, your motility is all messed up. It's kinda they would tell me it's like a hose. You put pressure on a hose here and you put hose pressure here. What's gonna happen is it's just gonna kinda in the middle. And because I don't have that natural peristalsis muscle contraction, so hence I've had all these bowel resections leading to small bowel syndrome and a lot of other things. Um, but yeah, so, um, where have I been? In 2019, right before I graduated, I actually got a job with a company. They're called NutriShare. They are a TPN pharmacy. They specialize in TPN patients that are dependent long term on TPN like me. Um, I actually got hired for the first time as a patient advocate, and I also did their social media. So I helped them grow their social media. Um, I myself have been, kind of a creator. That's what people refer to them now instead of influencers. Um, I do what I can when I'm feeling well. I like to share, like, things that work for me, whether it be beauty items, makeup items, clothing items. I also have worked for a company called Stella and Dot since 2011, and they are a jewelry and accessory line. Um, they used to be, like, direct sales, and I would do at-home trunk shows, like, people would have parties, and I'd bring over all the jewelry, and, unfortunately, in, like, 2018, 2019, I kinda had to cut back from doing the at-home portion of things, and I tried taking it more online. And then with COVID, the system changed for them, like, the business-wise, but I still represent them as an ambassador, so I still share, like, on my social channels. I still, share with people out and about that, say they compliment, like, my earrings or my necklace. So I keep busy, um, even though, like, I'm not getting out of the house a whole lot because of pain daily that I have, but I'm still able to go and, get my phone out,
Mhm. Mm.
and connect to the world through it, basically.
Well, and that's so, the internet comes with a lot of great parts about it. There's some downsides too, which there's a lot of
Yeah.
junk on there, but what you just described is the fact that, even in your situation, you can still work and you can still have an influence on the world, even though maybe you're not feeling great and you can't leave the house, because it just don't have the
Yeah.
juice in the tank to be able to do it. And,
Yeah.
and here we are, it's like we're sitting across town, but, I've interviewed people in Australia and, Guam and Europe and, just like
Yeah.
this. And it's like, this is to me the magic of the internet and the promise of it is that. So one thing you haven't really touched on, and I don't know, and that's you're now a clinical advisory committee member for the Olay Foundation.
Yeah, so the Oli Foundation is a nonprofit. I was an ambassador with them. I still am an ambassador, like, I was basically like an advocate and you share. Back in the day, like 15 years ago, um, before like things got as big as they did with social media, my mom and I were actually on their roster or their directory so that if other people were coming to their website and needed to talk to somebody, like, in their area, they could call me or my mom. Um, so we started out doing that, and then I've actually, over the last few years, I've, like, written stories through them. I've written an article at the end of 2023 for the AVA Foundation, or not AVA Foundation, AVA, American Vas not American, it's the Vascular Association. I'm blank on the name. Um, they have a lot of vascular access nurses and doctors, and I got to write an article for their IQ magazine, which is like a quarterly magazine newsletter, I guess you could say. And I wrote about like the central line, the Hickman. This is actually called a Hickman, the type of catheter it is. So I got to write a nice article about that. But with the Oli, the advisory committee, I just started with that last June. I was asked to be on it, and there's a few other, of my friends who are patient advocates, and then there are some, well-known doctors in our community, um, that are kind of the ones that run things, and it's just, I would say what we do is we get to help, make decisions on certain things. Like right now, they're trying to come up with, a centers of excellence where, physicians can like go to the Oli website and become a member, and then their name and information will be on a greater list so that patients can access it, if a patient is looking for a TPN provider, because let's just say there's not a lot of TPN providers out there, like doctors who know how to manage TPN and are willing to write the orders for it. Um, Sometimes GI doctors do it, depending on states, locations. For me, my primary care doctor has been doing it for the last 25 years. Um, so yeah, that's
Okay.
kind of just a small part of being on their committee. Last year, I went to the Oli Foundation, their annual conference for my second time. The first time I went was in 2016. It was down in Newport Beach, and it was a lot the first time I went. A lot of people, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know a lot of people compared to, like, now how many people I know. And last year, I actually got to travel to Arizona, to Tempe, and I actually, presented and did, like, a topic on advocating for yourself or for your child, so that was fun. I got to do, like, a real in-person presentation versus a Zoom one, because most of the
Mhm.
time it's been on Zoom over the last few years. I actually Another really positive thing is in 2021, after I had major surgery, um, like, the day after surgery, I actually got my phone and I'm looking through my emails, and I get this email from the Oli Foundation that I have been awarded their Advocate of the Year for 2021.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I was like, "Wow." So that was nice to be recognized and seen for that, and
So you've done a remarkable job with, I mean, the health struggles that you had. You've done an amazing job to not only build your own community, but also to uh, to generate advocacy. Which we get back to the whole thing about developing your own community
Mhm.
and speaking out for it, because I think that's one of the things that oftentimes people miss, especially if they don't have as a challenge as you have had, over their life, is they don't feel like their story is one that needs to be told, and I think everybody's got a story to
Yes.
be told.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm. So, you've had an amazing journey, and I want to really thank you for having the time to take on here. Um, um,
For sure, thank you, like, for
oh,
having me and
oh
just
my gosh.
I know there's so much more we could talk about and I could share, but, it's
Well, we're gonna go
you
after
know
we're done with this. We're gonna you don't have to jump off right away because I have a couple of
Yeah.
things I want to talk to you about. But just to wrap this up, so I think I told you before we started, or I sent you a message that if basically, what would be your advice to your younger self? If you from this point of view in your life and you were to look back, and what would be your advice to that person?
Um, I mean, one of the things is just keep going, like,
Mhm.
always have those goals ahead, um, for people, like, pushing themselves to go to school and work, like, just know it will all work out, like, kinda deal. I I I know it can be really tough and stressful at the moment, but there's good things that always happen. Um, for my younger self, oh, I don't know. That one's kinda hard sometimes to think
Mhm.
about because there's so many, like, lessons that you wanna be able to tell yourself, but I know my grandma always did a good job telling me things like life lessons that now, like, as I'm older, I'm like, grandma was right about that." Like elastic waist pants. She's like, "One day elastic waist pants will be your favorite thing."
Well, and I'm a big believer. I think elastic's one of the greatest things ever, and I used to think it was so dorky when I was a kid, but
Exactly.
yeah, I agree. It's kind of like that in shorts. It just is amazing. Well, again, we'll end it here, and I do want to have you on again at some point. We'll continue on in our various discussions, and I want to thank you. Don't hop off after we're done. And again, thank you very much. And we will link to the resources that you were talking about in like your
Yeah,
Facebook page and things like that in the show notes. So great,
yeah, thank you.
thank you. Thank you for tuning in to DVC Alumni, where every story inspires the next, the podcast for the DVC Alumni Association. You can contact us at alumni@dvc.edu with any comments, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our podcast.